There's a lot of books out there on sleep, on diet and nutrition, on exercise, and so forth. But from the research that I had done, what I began to really see is that it's not just about one thing. I'm not into chasing longevity as much as I'm into chasing health span and brain span to better match our lifespan.
Welcome to Voices of Esalen. I'm Sam Stern. Today my guest is Maddy Dychtwald, author of the best-selling book Ageless Aging, a woman's guide to increasing health span, brain span, and lifespan. Maddy has been recognized by Forbes Magazine as one of the top 50 female futurists globally. She's the co-founder of AgeWave, a world leader in understanding and addressing the far-reaching impacts of longevity and our aging population. She's a member of the Wall Street Journal's expert panel and has been featured in Bloomberg Businessweek, Newsweek, Time, Fox Business News, CNBC, and NPR. Her book, Ageless Aging, provides an insider's guide to living better longer, covering everything from fitness and nutrition to hormones and ageism. I had a fantastic discussion with Maddy just a few weeks ago, as her book was gaining momentum and had just been announced a USA Today bestseller. Maddy, I think congratulations are in order for your book, Ageless Aging, an incredible book that is doing incredibly well in the world today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited. I mean, it's really aimed at women. Sorry, Sam. There are a lot of things in it that pertain to men too. But, there are not very many books out there, if any at all, for women that are literally designed for women. Women, in fact, won the longevity lottery. We live on average 6 years longer than men. And there's tens of millions of women who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. And, we need to know, well, how do we clear up the confusion? Because there's so much confusion out there about what we can do to live better longer. And what's the insider information that's out there that we can really trust? And what are some action steps we can take? So that's what I tried to do.
Yeah, you write in your book that we're at the beginning stages of a longevity revolution. Could you tell me more about this? And also, could you touch upon why women are at the forefront?
Right now, for the very first time in history, we're seeing people living longer and better than ever before, ever. I mean, it wasn't even until the 20th century that we saw people living on average beyond the age of 47. And today, the average life expectancy has skyrocketed. It's gone all the way up to an average of about 77, 78. It went down a little during COVID, especially for men. But as it turns out, women, we live on average of 6 years longer than men. And that's fantastic news, but it also brings some challenges into play. And that is that when it comes to health span, the number of healthy years that we live, women aren't even doing as well as men. So there's a lot of room for improvement. And I want to try to provide women with some of those answers right here and right now, things that they can do, that we can do, because they're things I kind of use myself as a guinea pig for some of this stuff that I present in the book. So there's things that we can do right here and right now to literally live better longer. I love that idea.
Maddy, you and your husband, Ken, started a company called AgeWave back in 1986. Could you tell me what AgeWave is and what your original mission was?
Yeah, we started AgeWave close to 40 years ago. So you do the math, Sam. We've been doing this for a really long time. We've been very focused on retirement, aging, longevity. We do a lot of research and consulting, and we dig deep down into the subject. And we've worked with half of the Fortune 500, doing all kinds of thought leadership studies and consulting projects to help them better understand how the demographics are shifting in our country, how we are moving from a youth focus to a more long-lived population, and at the same time, how they can better serve this completely changing older population. I mean, we are not aging like our parents or grandparents did. In fact, in one of the more recent studies that AgeWave did, called The New Age of Aging, we found that when we asked people, how would you define old for your parents or grandparents? And how would you define old for yourself? We had very different answers. So for how do you define old for your parents or grandparents? That was age 60. But how do you define old for yourself or your peers? That was age 80.
It's actually funny. You write in your book that ageism is the last acceptable ism.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we've done a pretty good job, not a great job, really addressing some gender-related biases, some racial discrimination. I mean, listen, still exists, but we're at least facing these issues. But ageism is a little bit different because it's very pervasive and it's really evident in the marketplace and also in the workplace. And I believe personally, and I've seen it from other women also, that it's far worse for women than it is for men. I mean, women, we just get older, while men, they get wiser, they get more distinguished looking. It just doesn't seem fair, does it? Uh, I mean, I really don't like that. And we've heard many of celebrities come out and say, yeah, that is really true. I mean, Oprah did a TikTok video literally saying that she refused to take part in a culture that discriminated against older adults. Then as she's getting older, I mean, I think she was 69 at the time. I think she's 70 now. And by the way, looks better than I think she looked 20 years ago. And, it even affects her. There's a bias towards her. And we're starting to see little nicks in that kind of ageism begin to break through. I mean, for instance, we see Dolly Parton, who I'm personally like, I think she's amazing. Here she is. She's a songwriter. She's an artist. She gets out there and she supports things that she cares about. Like, for instance, very quietly, she was one of the key investors in the Moderna COVID vaccine. Hardly anyone knows that, but she believed that this was important. So she put more than $1 million into that particular vaccine's research. And she looks better than ever. And she's in her, I think she's 76 years old. She may be a little bit older than that by now, but she was out there in little shorts and a little tank top at the Dallas Cowboys football game doing the national anthem and looking so incredible. I thought that was like pretty inspiring. So we saw Martha Stewart on the cover of Sports Illustrated swimwear issue at 82. And it got so much attention that this year we're seeing Christy Brinkley on the cover at age 70 and Gayle King included in her 60s. So I think we are beginning to see little shifts, but we need to see bigger shifts, and we need to see it happen not just with the rich and famous, but with people like me and normal women who are doing great things in the world, but maybe we're not celebrities.
I love it. Love it. So tell me about the title of your book, Ageless Aging. What do you mean by ageless aging?
Yeah, a lot of people are saying, well, what do you mean by ageless aging? Because it's a little bit of a different term. I don't like the terms like anti-aging. I'm not anti-aging at all. If anything, I am pro-aging. But even being pro-aging, it just didn't feel right to me. And a few years back, I was doing a keynote presentation for a group of women executives, very senior level, mostly in their late 40s, 50s, and maybe even a little older. And we were talking about what the aging and longevity experience was for women. And they were acknowledging the fact that they felt that they got a lot of ageism coming their way.
Mm.
And we started brainstorming, well, what are words we could use that would describe this aging experience and still feel positive? And we came up with the word ageless. We looked it up in the dictionary. We saw the very first word that described ageless was timeless. Now, I love that concept. We cannot, by the way, definitely cannot hold back the hands of time. No way.
Right.
However, there are things that we want to embrace about aging, like the wisdom, the resilience, the experience that comes with aging. But the physical changes, we want to either prevent them or delay them from happening. And that's what I try to offer in Ageless Aging, a prescription for doing just that.
Can you tell me a little bit about the process of writing this book? How did you form this? It feels like, first of all, it is an enormous compendium of everything that's important. It's like the Bible. It's really impressive what you've done in terms of its thoroughness and its grace. And I'm just curious about how you approached organizing it and how you approached accumulating so much information.
Yeah. I've been working on this book for more than 5 years. And so there's that. As I mentioned earlier, at AgeWave, we do a lot of research digging deep into the subject of aging and longevity. So that was sort of the underpinnings of my knowledge base. And through the process of getting all that research accomplished, I had the great chance to interview experts, academicians, researchers, scientists, physicians. And along the way, I'd always try to ask them, well, like, what are your secrets? What's the insider information that you whisper into the ears of the people that you really care about? And, frankly, if you talk to people long enough, they start telling you what their secrets are. And I kept track of those. At the same time, I kind of experimented with some of them on myself. I used myself as a guinea pig. And what I found was, yeah, some of these work really great. Others, not so much for me anyway. And so then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, I realized the fact that there were these tens of millions of women who, like me, were living longer. And what we wanted to do is not just live longer, but live better.
Mm,
Get rid of the aches and pains that might come from aging. Maybe we're coping with a chronic disease like diabetes, or maybe trying to make sure we don't get heart disease, and certainly we don't want to get cognitive decline. So recognizing that there was this strong need, I looked out there at what other books there were on longevity. And Sam, there are a lot of books on longevity, but most of them are written by men. And frankly, they really focus in on issues that are for men in many ways. Not completely, because there's a lot of issues that we share, but there wasn't a book that I could find that was really focused for women by a woman. And I wanted to change that reality. There's another point too. There's a lot of books out there on sleep, on diet and nutrition, on exercise, and so forth. But from the research that I had done, what I began to really see is that it's not just about one thing, like diet, which of course is incredibly important, but it's about this kind of bouquet of different ingredients that all kind of work together. They're not in silos, independently functioning.
mm,
They function together as a grand symphony.
mm,
And I wanted to be sure to make that point. So, for instance, if you're exercising more, and by the way, exercise is a different thing for women than men. The impact is slightly different.
mm.
But if you are exercising more, chances are you're going to want to eat a little bit of a healthier diet. You're going to have more energy to do the other things like getting out there and maybe volunteering your time. You're also going to sleep better and so on. So these things all work together. And I wanted to emphasize that point.
You write that fitness is really like a silver bullet for aging agelessly. I think it's the first sort of like chapter in the part of the book where you go into the various elements of aging agelessly. So why is fitness so important?
Well, first of all, it's my favorite thing to do. I mean, I'm totally addicted. It's the best positive addiction that I have. And I'm really glad that I have this addiction because exercise is not only good for us physiologically, for our physical body, but for our brains. And you may not know this, but women are twice as likely to suffer from cognitive decline as men.
Wow.
That's like a serious, scary thing. And exercise actually, check this out, actually increases the size of our hippocampus.
Mm,
And that's where we store our memories. So Very, very important. Now, let me add a couple other ingredients to this, and that is that exercise is not just about doing cardio, which, I know that's where I started in my fitness journey, but it's also about building strength. And by the way, building strength, many of the scientists that I talked to told me that they thought that muscle strength should be a new vital sign similar to like our blood pressure or our heart rates. It's that important. And it gets even more important as we get older because as early as in your 30s, Sam, this is men and women, we begin to lose muscle mass. And you don't want to lose muscle mass because not only are you going to look worse, but you're going to feel worse and you're going to be more frail, more likely to fall and hurt yourself and maybe even break a bone and so on. We don't want to go there. By the way, the other point I want to make, I know I'm saying a lot around fitness here, but there are literally 6 different aspects to fitness. And as we get older, we need to include all of them. Okay, so there's the obvious cardio. We already talked about that. It doesn't get less important as you get older. Then there's the building muscle strength, also really important. Balance. I mean, you can just imagine if you're not balanced. Have you seen some older people like wobbling down the street and you're like, oh my God, they could fall at any second. Yeah, you don't want to go there. You want to include balance. You want to include posture. I know, here we are, you and I, we're sitting in front of computers and probably a little hunched over. I'm continuously trying to change that, but posture becomes a super important piece of the puzzle. And then there's something that we don't always think of as exercise, but might be one of my favorite exercises, and that is relaxation. Relaxation, meditation is in fact a kind of exercise. So are breathing exercises. These pieces can work together. And so you're probably sitting there saying, oh my God, you spend your entire day exercising? And I don't. I try to combine it as much as I can. And I try to combine it with maybe walking outdoors and maybe doing that with a friend. So I'm getting a little social connection. But I'm a big, big, big Pilates fan. I tore my ACL skiing when I was 40 and used Pilates for rehab and became totally obsessed with it. Why, you might ask? And the reason why is very simple, because it combines. You're building muscle strength. You're working on your posture. You're working on your balance. I mean, these are great ways to combine what Katie Bowman, who I know you interviewed, called stacking your different elements of your fitness routine into one routine. So you're not spending the day at the gym, you're spending maybe 45 minutes to an hour.
Love it. That's so great. Yeah, there's a lot to do. I liked your concept of stacking. It's like if you go to the gym with a friend and you're listening to music, you're getting joy, you're getting connection, and you're doing something good for your body. And apparently, as you have let us know, like that changes your brain as well.
Right. That's right. And by the way, if you listen to music that's of another generation, like for instance, I'm 74 years old. My husband, Ken, who you know very well, he's like obsessed with music of the 70s. And I keep saying, honey, try listening to some more contemporary music so you can know what the kids are up to. And you know what? It really makes a difference. It helps connect you more with younger people. I mean, I love the idea of intergenerational connections. I think it's good for younger people, good for older people.
Yeah, you're right in your book that you've made some close friends with the friends of your adult children.
That's right. I forced them to be my friends. No, it's been really fun. I've really enjoyed it. In fact, there's 1 or 2 people that my kids might have given up on, and I've become really good friends with.
You've swooped down and claimed them.
I did. You're mine.
Well, that's amazing. Let's talk about food. I found your chapter on food especially interesting. So, could you talk about why it's important to eat 5 colors a day?
Yeah, I think that there is so much information out there about what you should eat or what you shouldn't eat, and it's so overwhelming and confusing. And the diet wars. I mean, do you eat keto? Do you eat paleo? I mean, Ooh, it's overwhelming. It can be overwhelming. So I tried to simplify it. My first line of defense is what Michael Pollan says, which I love. It says, eat real food, not too much, mostly plants. That seems so simple and easy to follow. And then I got some really great advice from Kristen Fitzpatrick, who is the head of nutrition at Cleveland Clinic. And she said, eat the rainbow. And I found that to be a really cool way of thinking about it. So that doesn't mean eating like some kind of pastry that's strawberry colored. I don't even know what those things are anymore because I try not to pay attention to them. But it means eating real food. So that means eating lots of fruits and vegetables of different colors. Last night, for instance, I went out to dinner with some family and friends, and we had a beet salad and a kale salad. We had some sushi. We really tried to have many different colored foods. We had whole grains. Whole grains are great for you. So it's what you eat, but it's also what you don't eat.
Mm.
And, I would suggest to every single person, man or woman, to get out into their pantry, and anything that's an ultra processed food, get rid of it. It is really it's not good for you. The seed oils, get rid of them. And yet, on the other hand, olive oil, especially extra virgin olive oil, is actually very good for you. So focus on the stuff that's good for you. Get rid of the crap. It's really not that complicated.
Let me ask you a question about the protein and vegetarianism. Lately, we've been trying to eat less meat in my family, and we've gotten into some of the like impossible meat.
Yeah, the fake stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So what's your opinion on that stuff?
Well, some of it tastes really good, but I don't like fake food. It's just my own personal opinion. However, I think science kind of backs it up. I think it has a place in the marketplace, but I think for people like you who are surrounded by fresh fruits and vegetables in California, that you ought to go for those. And there is protein in fruits and vegetables, and find other sources of protein that are more natural.
Mm.
I think that's really important. I also think it's really important to eat organic. Most of the doctors that I spoke to who told me that 10 years ago, they didn't even care about organic. That was not even on their radar. But as climate change has taken hold, they say, yeah, you better eat organic. And, the concern, of course, is, oh, organic is so much more expensive. But many of them agreed that buying flash frozen fruits and vegetables that are organic is a great way to go, because flash frozen actually holds on to the nutrient content, maybe even better than if you have something in your refrigerator for a week.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it can save you money too. That's one of the things I really did try to focus on in Ageless Aging, and that is, not everyone is a billionaire wanting to be a longevity guru. I mean, many of us are just trying to find, well, what are some of the hacks
Hmm.
that don't cost a lot of money and that I can integrate into my life right here and now? And that's a lot of what I tried to focus on.
What about things like coffee and wine, especially with respect to staving off dementia? Like, I feel like I've heard studies on both sides of the coin, and I'm curious about where the research is on things like this for aging.
Okay, so let's talk about coffee. Are you a coffee
I
drinker?
love coffee.
Yeah, I love coffee too. I think it's great. It doesn't always love me, honestly, but I love it. It has those tannins in it that don't always agree with me.
Mm.
Once in a while, it's great for me. Okay, coffee is a nootropic, which means it's good for your brain. So that's great news, but you want to be sure that you get high quality organic coffee, because if it's sprayed, and they're sprayed pretty aggressively, the coffee beans in many places, uh, that's not good for you at all. It brings toxins into your body, and they can accumulate in your brain and have the absolute opposite effect as a nootropic. So buy the organic. I'm not going to tout one brand over another, but there's some great brands out there that you can get. And, you want to treat your body right. So starting out your day, I personally think starting with some warm water and lemon or warm water and apple cider vinegar is a great way to start. And then go in for the coffee or tea or whatever your favorite nootropic might be. Wine is a little bit different. It's kind of a sad story for me because I love wine, but wine is actually not so great for your brain. Now, if you have a glass of wine once a week or twice a week, that's fine. But you really want to limit it to that because it can have a negative impact on your brain cells. And you don't want that to be happening. It's really not good. By the way, sugar too can have a really negative effect.
Okay. Well, here's another kind of like a food fitness question. I found it interesting that you wrote that waist size is actually a really good indication of health. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, that's really true for women. I think it's true for men too, but I was focused on women. So, yeah, a lot of women have actually reached out to me and said that they were surprised to know that, but it is true. And as you may or may not know, menopause is sort of a trigger point for an increase in waist circumference. It equates directly with heart health. And by the way, heart health, believe it or not, equates very directly with brain health because a lot of the same things that you do to maintain heart health are exactly the same things that you do to maintain brain health. And you know what? That's such a great shortcut. It's like, oh, I have to do this for my heart and this for my brain. No, you do the same things.
Okay, so let's say that, okay, like I'm asking for a friend who might have like the waist size might be a little too large or whatever.
Are you asking for yourself?
It's for, okay, so it's for a friend named Sam. What should I do if I feel like my waist size is in the unhealthy range or something like that? What's the next step?
There's two really easy, well, there's more than two, but there's two places to start. And one is with your diet. And that's, eliminating those ultra processed foods. It's going to make a huge difference in a very short period of time. Also, eliminating all of we already said it, but the seed oils and sugar. Sugar is very toxic. I would also say alcohol and wine, if you stop doing those two things, you won't believe the difference it'll make. You will lose weight very quickly. Another little hack, I think, is something called intermittent fasting, which probably many of your listeners are very familiar with. But when I spoke with Walter Longo, who I am such a fan of Walter Longo. He's the guy who came up with the whole concept of intermittent fasting.
Mm,
He told me that he feels it's been misinterpreted by the biohackers at the cutting edge who are going 16, 18 hours without eating. He felt like that was actually bad for your health. He told me that all it means is going 12 to 13 hours without eating. So that means stopping dinner at 8 o'clock at night, not eating breakfast till 8 o'clock in the morning. He also said that he thought that eating breakfast was actually the most important meal of the day, which I was like, oh my God, that's what my grandmother used to say. So, yeah. So, I think that those are some of the things you can do in terms of food. I also think that exercise, two things I would focus on. And in a very short time, if you combine it with food, you will see a huge difference in your weight circumference. And that is doing some strength building. And, that includes doing some abs and maybe some things that have to do with that part of your body in particular, but also doing cardio. Cardio burns calories. So, do a HIIT workout.
mhm.
A HIIT workout is a great shortcut to burning lots of calories in a short amount of time. And I just started experimenting with something that it's been around for a while, but that whole idea of getting on the treadmill and going on an incline of 12 at just the speed of 3, which is, I don't think it's very hard, and doing it for 30 minutes, supposedly it burns a lot more calories. And I don't know, I'm doing it because I'm going to a wedding soon and I want to look my best. So
Is that high intensity workout, the putting your treadmill up on a slant?
it's not, I wouldn't look, a HIIT workout is a little bit different. That's like the interval training. And I do that all the time. I love it. I think it's great. It makes me feel good, if nothing else. My son is visiting from Shanghai this week, and we were at the gym at 7 o'clock this morning doing interval training. And we both walked out of there saying, yeah, I mean, I feel ready for my day now. So yeah, I love interval training is my go-to. I love it. It burns calories, but experimenting with some other things just for the fun of it, it's kind of nice to do.
Okay, I like it. That's great. Well, Maddie, in Ageless Aging, you use these terms lifespan, health span, brain span, even wealth span.
Yep.
Can you talk to me a little bit about that and what those all mean and how they relate to longevity?
Sure. So it's really pretty straightforward. Lifespan is the number of years that you live. So it's the number of birthdays that you've had. It's pretty simple. Health span is the number of healthy years that you live. And in our country, on average, both women and men spend the last about 12 years of their lives in a cascade of poor health. So we're not matching our health span very effectively to our lifespan. For women, it's even worse than men, and that's not a good thing. We need to change that reality. And by the way, I would say that changing that reality is very much within our control. We used to believe, and some people still do, that most of our health and well-being as we get older, our health spans, have to do with our genetics. And that's just not true. Yes, it has something to do with it, like about 10% of what our health span and our brain span, which we'll talk about in a minute, what those two things are. Instead, according to the most recent science out of Calico Labs, they tell us that up to 90% of our health and longevity have to do with both our lifestyle and our environment. So that puts us in control, which is kind of scary to some people, but also incredibly empowering. The idea that we are in control. We've got the power within our own self. And I love that. So that's health span. Long way of getting there, but I got there. Brain span is something that not everybody's talking about yet, but I believe it's going to be like the new. And that is the number of years your brain is functioning well. We don't want to have a healthy body and have our brain turn into mush. I mean, that sounds horrible. We have all seen the number of cases of cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease in the 85 plus population in particular really increase. It's a scary reality. And we always thought that that was something that we had no control over. And I know Alzheimer's disease runs in my family and in my husband Ken's family. My mom, I got to watch her go down that horrible rabbit hole of Alzheimer's disease. And the one thing it showed me was I don't want to go there. Recent science tells us, yes, there's no cure, but there are some things we can do to either prevent or certainly delay the onset of Alzheimer's disease. And we want to do that. So we want our brain span and our health span to better match up to our lifespan. And then wealth span, well, most books on longevity, they don't even include anything on money. And I saw that as a huge oversight. I think that just as an example, in a study that we've done at AgeWave, we asked women, do you want to live to 100? And they said, yes, absolutely. The majority, I think it was like 89% said, yes, we definitely want to do that. But most of those women didn't think they had enough money to even last them to the age of 80. And average life expectancy in our country for women is 81.
Wow.
If you don't have your financial house in order, it's going to begin to create tremendous amounts of stress in your life, elevated cortisol levels, and that can manifest as inflammatory diseases, diabetes, I mean, all kinds of diseases, which in fact will cost you money to deal with. So it's a vicious circle. By the way, it's never too late to pay attention to your financial well-being and to start making sense of it. And I talk about that a lot in Ageless Aging because it's an important element, often overlooked by longevity experts and often overlooked by women. Financial health, from all the experts I spoke to, scientists, researchers, financial experts, there seemed to be an agreement that financial fitness was as important as physical fitness. So let's begin by saying that. The first thing that every single woman, and I would say man too, ought to do is gain some financial knowledge. And that's pretty easily accessible online. I mean, there are resources that are readily available, and I do mention them in Ageless Aging. What we have learned from studies that we've done at AgeWave and other studies that have been done is that when women in particular gain financial knowledge, they also gain financial confidence. And when it comes to most issues pertaining to finances, like budgeting and clearing up debt, women have a lot of financial confidence. But when it comes to investing in their future, they don't have so much financial confidence. So we need to gain that financial confidence, because in another study that we've done at AgeWave, what we learned was women's number one regret financially was not investing more. We want to be able to take those first steps into investing, and we want to do it in a safe way so that we're not losing money, but gaining money. And the best way to start is, if you're still working and you have a 401k or an IRA. If you have a 401k, max it out and make sure that your employer matches. That's a great first step. If you don't have a 401k plan, start an IRA. And be diligent about contributing. And if it's too hard to do it all at the end of the year, right before taxes, do it a little bit every month. Make it a priority. Instead of going to Starbucks for your morning latte, start that investment fund that you can create for yourself. Because believe it or not, those little incremental add-ons make a huge difference. And the younger you can start, the better. But I would also say that it's never too late. And as trite as that may sound, I know women in their 50s and 60s who never had the bandwidth to save at all or invest in themselves, and they start then, and it gives them a sense of confidence and well-being. So yeah, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, this sounds really important. I feel like this section of your book might be worth the price of admission just by itself. I mean, honestly.
I've heard that from a lot of people, I mean, including Katie Bowman. No, a lot of people feel that way because it's not a subject that many longevity experts really broach, because it can be very complicated. But I was lucky enough to be able to talk to some terrific financial experts who are some at the cutting edge and some in very well established old school companies that gave me some great advice to pass on to the women who will be reading Ageless Aging.
Love that. Let's dig into a little bit of the Brainspan question.
Yeah.
In your book, you give a to-do list to reduce cognitive decline, and I'm just wondering if you might give us a few tips on this topic.
We've touched on a few of them already, and I'll just reiterate the fact that, exercising as much as, if you can exercise every day or at least 5 days a week, doing something, that's powerful medicine all by itself. And apparently leg exercises are even more powerful than full body exercise. I don't know why, and none of the scientists I talked to could tell me why, but they all seem to agree with that. They also said that the good news for women is they don't need to exercise as much as men. They get the same results exercising slightly, I'll underline the word slightly, less than men, and for shorter amounts of time and less vigorously. So that's kind of good news, I guess. Second, I think we talked about already, nutrition is a huge issue, cutting out the bad and adding in the good, just like we discussed already.
Giving up smoking?
Oh my God. If people still smoke, yes, please give it up. If you're experiencing any kind of hearing loss, be sure to get it corrected, because there's a strong link between hearing loss and cognitive decline. People start to tune out when they can't hear well. I think that may have a lot to do with it. So really making sure that your hearing is up to par. And if it isn't, get it checked out. Get whatever kind of hearing aids, and they've improved quite dramatically. So that's a good step. Sleep. I mean, sleep is a huge part of cognitive health, huge part. There's a big emphasis on the number of hours you sleep. People say 7 to 8 hours is ideal. Sleep is not my superpower, although I have improved it quite dramatically. Quality of sleep is as important as quantity of sleep. Dr. Z, I think her first name was Sandra Z from Northwestern University. She's a neurosurgeon as well as a sleep expert. She told me that she'd rather get 5 hours of amazing sleep than 7 or 8 hours of okay sleep, waking up a lot. So I thought that was great information. Keep in mind that most studies on sleep don't even include people over the age of 65.
Mm.
So I take some of the information about the hours with a grain of salt. What Dr. Z told me was, you know what, do you wake up in the morning feeling well rested? That's a good way of measuring, did you get enough sleep?
Mm.
And I thought that that was really smart. By the way, one more thing I'll say about sleep is that I found myself that waking up in the morning, what I did in the morning was as important as what I did at night for my sleep. So getting my circadian rhythms in alignment with the sun. I now wake up with the sun, and I find that it really helps me go to sleep at night. For women, going through menopause has a dramatic impact on our cognitive health. And I would strongly urge women, I'm going to give you the shortcut here, see a menopause specialist. OB-GYNs, not all of them are well informed about what's needed in terms of hormone replacement. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, even by well-meaning physicians. I mean, there is a link between cognitive decline and the loss of estrogen. So this is an important piece of the puzzle. Controlling diabetes, huge deal, huge deal. And it's type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Alcohol consumption. In fact, there's a recent study that came out that said there are 3 things that are the most important when it comes to increasing your cognitive capabilities and trying to not get into cognitive decline. One is controlling diabetes, and that's again type 1 and type 2. The second one is eliminating alcohol. And then third has to do with indoor air pollution. So getting good quality air filters in your home, especially your bedrooms, very important piece of the puzzle.
Wow.
I know I thought that was kind of crazy too, but most recent science, and you got to pay attention to the science.
Does microdosing show up in any of these studies?
Not for cognitive decline, but I do talk about microdosing that, people are doing it to try to increase the number of brain connections, the synapses in their brain. And yeah, it's a little more controversial. Remember, I was published by Mayo Clinic Press, and I chose the Mayo Clinic Press. I had 17 interested publishers. And the reason I chose Mayo Clinic Press was because of the Mayo Clinic name, because I'm not a physician. And I thought, yeah, that'll be really helpful. But what I didn't realize, and I'm glad I went through this, but they had 3 physicians and a geneticist go through every single chapter of my book and give me notes. And there were very few notes I got from them, which was incredible. They agreed with what I was saying. The microdosing was a place where they were a little skeptical.
Right, because the science is not really in on it yet.
That's exactly right. They're very science-based, which I love. But no, they're very forward thinking in so many ways. I mean, they're at the forefront of all the clinical research and clinical studies that are being done right now on the senolytics. And the senolytics are what gets rid of the zombie cells in our brain, which is really important. And they're pretty excited about that. I think that those are going to really have a great impact on the way we age.
Wow. Okay, so I've never heard of zombie cells.
Oh, yeah, we've got them. you've never heard of them, you probably have a lot of them. I'm only kidding. I don't know that. But, we want to make sure, for instance, I will use myself. First of all, I have a very bad genetic package. My dad died of lung disease at 60, and my mom, I already mentioned, died with Alzheimer's disease. So, I'm doing everything I can to live better longer because I have terrible genes. And that's not the only reason, but that was certainly one of my motivators. So I try every possible thing and I get everything. And I believe in all the new diagnostics that are out there that are done through a qualified diagnostician. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. So, yeah, I found out that I had high levels of mercury, and it's because I eat a lot of sushi.
Mm.
And I have really cut down on my sushi, and I took some things to clear out the mercury levels, and I swear I felt better from doing it. And now I'm very, very careful about that. So I do think that senolytics and getting rid of these zombie cells really can serve a big purpose in our lives as we live better, longer, and we chase this longevity dream. And by the way, I'm not into chasing longevity as much as I'm into chasing health span and brain span to better match our lifespan.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. So, Maddie, earlier in our conversation, you mentioned that you had been a guinea pig for some some of the techniques in this book. I'm just curious if you had any stories along those lines.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I definitely have a couple stories. One of the things I learned along the way, which I did not know beforehand, was that many of the pharmaceutical products that we take have not been tested on women at all.
Mm.
It wasn't until 2016 that the FDA told pharma companies that they ought to include women in their clinical trials. And still, they're not included in all of them, but many more than they used to be, which is great news. So it's a step in the right direction. But anyway, there's an old drug out there called metformin that many of the biohackers use for longevity. They use it off label, but there's a strong connection. Everybody touts it. They think it's terrific and great. And yeah, they use it. So I wanted to try it. I went to my doctor and said, hey, I want to try this. And she's like, oh, I don't know. You don't have diabetes, and this is a diabetes drug, and you're not even pre-diabetic. And I said, no, I really want to take it. She goes, okay, we just want to get a lot of testing done to make sure that you stay healthy. Of course, I'm all for that. So I started taking it, and I found within 2 weeks, my gut was in total revolt, hated the drug. It really messed up my gut in ways that you can only imagine. I'm not going to go into detail. So that was a bad example of what happened to me. And I would say that, this is a good place to add in the fact that there is a very strong gut-brain connection. Scientists aren't really sure how it works exactly, but they know that it's there. One of the I think she's a neuroscientist and a physician. She is also a biotech CEO of a company that is in clinical trials right now for an Alzheimer's vaccine, which is pretty cool. They're based in Switzerland. Her name is Dr. Andrea Pfeiffer. She told me she takes only one supplement, and the supplement she takes is a probiotic. And so,
Wow.
yeah, probiotics, go for it. I take probiotics. I love them. I take a lot of other supplements too, honestly.
One thing that I'd love to hear a bit about is the impact social connections can have on lifespan and health span. So why does social connection have such a profound impact on health and well-being?
Yeah, we really got to see it a lot during COVID. I mean, we saw how people got a little weirded out by not having social connections, now we did a lot of Zoom like we're doing right now, but the touch of another person becomes really important. We even heard the fact from science that loneliness, let's just talk about loneliness, not social isolation, but loneliness is the equivalent in health terms of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So we know that loneliness is a kind of disease. And it's not something that we want to put in our lives. Now, does that mean that you have to be the most extroverted person in the world and have a huge network of people that you see on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? No. It means, having a few, maybe it's family, maybe it's friends, maybe it's some combination of people that you can really count on and that you see regularly. And then having what they call softer connections. So these really count. They call them micro connections. These are things like you go to the grocery store and you say hi to the checkout person, if there is actually a checkout person there. You greet people as you smile as you walk in and make eye contact with people. Believe it or not, that makes a difference. Micro kindnesses. One of the psychiatrists that I spoke with from New York, she was at Columbia University, affiliated there. She told me that she was feeling lonely during COVID, and she was living on the Upper West Side and in a townhouse and feeling really isolated. So she started going outside, even in the cold weather, and cleaning up some of the trash in her neighborhood, like just in front of her house, maybe down a house or two. And when some of her neighbors saw her doing it, they came out and helped, to the point where they created a neighborhood cleanup day once every 2 weeks, followed by a brunch that they all had together. And so she was able to create an entirely new social network based on her own feeling of being socially isolated and wanting to really connect with other people. And so she had the double effect of cleaning up her neighborhood. And they started planting in the spring, which was very cool. And so they beautified their neighborhood and created better connections.
That's brilliant.
It is. I'm sure you do things like that at Esalen. Esalen is one of the most beautiful places that I have ever been to, and I've been all over the world traveling extensively. I love travel. So that's one thing, that just the sheer beauty of the place fills my heart with joy. It really does. I can be there and I don't even have to talk to anyone. Just taking in that beauty is a rare experience. So I absolutely love that. And then when I go there, people do smile at you more than they may if you're just walking down the street going somewhere in a busy city. And I like that. And they make eye contact, and you can sit down. One of the things I love about Esalen is you can sit down to a meal and you can join, you just sit anywhere with a group of other people if you so choose, and ask them if you can join. And they're usually very welcoming, and it's a great way of meeting other people. I've always walked away from Esalen meeting new people, and that's one of the things I love. And then also, since my husband, Ken, who you know very well, is an Esalen oldie but goodie. It used to be when we went there all the time, I'd meet all his old friends and almost like family. And they were like family. And they treated me as if I was like one of them, which I really appreciated, because I definitely wasn't one of them. And yet they made me feel right at home right away. And I appreciate that. I love being there. I miss it. I miss Esalen.
Come back anytime.
Thank you. I'm going to take you up on that. It's kind of hard to get to right now, isn't it?
It's getting easier. There's like a stoplight now where there once was the impossibility of getting through except for 2 times a day.
Yeah.
So it's better. Well, Maddy, I only have a couple more questions. I know you have to go. You're on a whirlwind of promotion for this book. I mean, it's doing so incredibly well. It's like a bestseller on USA Today, bestseller on another list or
Yeah,
two.
Publishers Weekly, Barnes and Noble, not to brag, but
But why not? Listen, what about purpose? I feel like we've talked about every single thing. What about purpose and its impact on our lifespan, brain span, health span?
yeah, we've always known that having meaning in your life, having a sense of purpose, uh, just intuitively, it feels like it's something that's important. And now science seems to back it up and say that it really helps us maintain our cognitive health, our heart health, and it can actually have all kinds of really terrific other, it lowers inflammation levels. It has tremendous measurable impact on our health and well-being, both physical and psychological and mental. We also know that there's more than one kind of purpose. purpose does not have to be purpose with a big P, which is like, oh, I'm starting my own nonprofit, or here's my new career, or I'm starting my own business. I mean, that's great for some people who really want to do those kinds of things. But then there's the rest of the world who like, I just want to feel like I have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And that's purpose with a little p. And from studies we've done at AgeWave, we've seen that the number one source of purpose for most people as they get older is spending time with family. And it's real, and it's so nourishing to our sense of purpose. The other thing I found fascinating is that we ask people, well, what's the one thing you'd be willing to do to have a higher sense of purpose? And the number one thing for most people was adopting a pet. I love that.
That's really, really nice.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. So, purpose doesn't have, it can be babysitting for your grandchildren, or, walking your dog, or, creating a beautiful meal for family or friends. That can also be a strong sense of purpose. I know your wife works in the garden, right?
Yes, she does.
And I would imagine that gives her a great big sense of purpose.
Enormously so. Yeah, that's really gratifying, useful for her. Maddy, to close, what do you think are the big takeaways from your book, Ageless Aging? Why should women read this book?
Well, I think that, frankly, I've heard a lot of younger women say, I really want to get this book too. So, I've been saying, oh, yeah, this is for the tens of millions of women who are in their 40s, 50s, and beyond. But I think that we women in general, we want to live better, longer. We want to take control of our health, whether it be physical or our brain health. And I provide the knowledge, clear up the confusion, and provide some action steps, some of which don't cost a penny, to do just that, to get rid of those aches and pains and help prevent or delay or at least control something like type 2 diabetes, or heart disease, or stress levels, cognitive decline. These are the things that we want to control and feel like we have some agency over. And I want women to know that they do have agency over their health and well-being. And this book provides them with the tools to do that.
Maddy Dychtwald, you are the author of Ageless Aging, A Woman's Guide to Increasing Healthspan, Brainspan, and Lifespan. How can people find your book?
It's available everywhere. On all, independent books, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookstores everywhere. Also, if you want to go to my website, which is maddydychtwald.com, we're offering some free gifts to go along with the book, which I personally love. One on brain health, well, two on brain health. One, some of the outtakes from the interviews I did with experts that give you insider information on how to best manage your brain health, and then a checklist for how to manage your brain health better. Did the same thing for financial fitness. There's a great checklist, and then interviews with some of the leading experts. So those are available on my website, maddydychtwald.com.
Maddy, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been amazing to talk with you and learn from you.
Thanks, Sam. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you for listening to Voices of Esalen. Today's show is produced in conjunction with Shira Levine. Our theme music is composed by Nico Holloman. Stay tuned for further episodes. And if you really like what's going on, please rate and review this podcast. Yes, is your way to help.